Bonjour. I am here at the historic home of a man called Charles Louis de Secondat, Baron de la Brede de la Montesquieu. And we know him as just Montesquieu, and this is his historic home, Chateau de la Brede. Montesquieu was born here in this home in 1689, died 1755, and is very important objectively to the great conversation, this iterative conversation of ideas across human history, but particularly important to the American founding. Scholars suggest that Montesquieu is the single most influential figure and intellectual influence on the founding era, the Bible being second, but the founders were very much familiar with and absorbed a lot of Montesquieu's work, particularly his work called Spirit of the Laws. And in Spirit of the Laws, the founders really adopted and implemented in the American form of government this notion of the separation of powers, that the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government be discrete and separate and not unduly influence one another. So in his Spirit of the Laws, for example, he writes that these powers had to be separated for there to be justice and liberty in a society. He wrote, "When the legislative and executive powers are united in the same person or in the same body of magistrates, there can be no liberty, because apprehensions may arise lest the same monarch or senate should enact tyrannical laws to execute them in a tyrannical manner. Again, there is no liberty if the judiciary power be not separated from the legislative and executive. Were it joined with the legislative, the life and liberty of the subject would be exposed to arbitrary control, for the judge would be then the legislator. Were it joined to the executive power, the judge might behave with violence and oppression. There would be an end of everything, were the same man or the same body, whether nobles or the people, to exercise those three powers, that of enacting laws, that of executing the public resolutions, and of trying the cases of individuals." And that's exactly, so that's how he defines the legislative branch is that which passes the laws, the executive branch executes the laws, and the judicial branch tries the cases of individuals in a given society. And so it's interesting. This is, of course, a very important idea that John Locke developed later, and other scholars developed later. And it's interesting. The separation of powers, as we enjoy it in the American context, it ensures that our law, it ensures a very fundamental concept of the rule of law, that laws apply equally to everyone, and that laws are of general applicability and are known in advance, and that they can't be unduly weaponized and arbitrarily enforced, and that people are not subject to laws that they didn't even know existed in the first place, at least in theory. That is the ideal behind the separation of powers. Also embedded within the idea of the separation of powers and the political theory of both Montesquieu and the American founding fathers is a skeptical view of human nature, a high view of humanity that sees man as capable of greatness, but also capable of great depravity and corruption. Otherwise, why would we need to have powers separated if we could trust man to be inherently good? As James Madison wrote in the Federalist Papers, if men were angels, we would need no government. So both Montesquieu and the Founding Fathers wanted to arrange institutions in such a way as to to mitigate the worst parts of human nature and allow our best parts of humanity to flourish in community and in society. So Montesquieu, very important to the founders. Montesquieu was also known for his Persian Letters. That was an early work of his. It was a satire of French society. It was about two gentlemen coming from Persia and just being very confused by the hypocrisy and the ridiculousness of French society. And he did not win many favors with his fellow Frenchmen in writing the Persian Letters. It was very scathing of French society. All of his works, in fact, ended up on the banned book list, the Catholic Index of banned books. Including the spirit of the laws. I also want to mention the spirit of the laws. He has a really important point about the way in which regimes affect the character of a people, and how the character of a people inform and support regimes as well. So for example, he has a quote where he says, in a monarchy, it depends on and fosters honor in a people. It depends on honor. A republic depends on virtue of a people, and a tyranny depends on fear in a people. And he makes some really unflattering observations about how the French monarchy affects the character of a French people. He says that it corrupts their character and it makes them soft. Whereas he's very praising of democracy and the Republican system of government, how it cultivates virtue and strength of character in society. So it's not really a wonder why his work was not very popular here in France, but very popular in England and in America as well. He was also known for, he wrote a reflection on the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, and in his Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, he emphasized a view of the way in which principles and big ideas and systems, such as again his unchanging view of human nature, influenced the crux of the flow of history, and that's instead of kind of a great man theory of history, where great men drive history. That's how Thomas Carlyle, for example, developed his great man theory of history. So, for example, he says that if Pompey and Caesar hadn't usurped power in Rome, someone else would have. It wasn't about them. It was about human nature. If there was a power vacuum, men are ambitious and would have seized power. So it was not their ambition that caused that. It was the ambition of men in general that caused the Roman Empire. So Montesquieu, incredibly thoughtful, incredibly important, especially to the American context, the American system of government. Very influential to the Founding Fathers, as I mentioned. Scholars estimate that he's the single most influential source on the Founding Fathers and our view of government, and the Bible is second to that. So it's wonderful to be here and to walk a little bit in his footsteps today, here just south of Bordeaux at the beautiful Chateau de Le Prède.